Om Shri Sairam to all the viewers and listeners. Let us start this session with a Sai Gayatri chanting. Om Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Sai Ishwaraya Vidmahe Satyadevaya Dhimahi Tanna Sarva Prachodayat. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Gautam, brother. Hello, Gautam.
Sairam?
You're on mute. Okay.
Yes. I'm just setting up the the photos. Om Shri Sairam. Welcome everyone to Prema Pravaham, Connect to Reconnect series of alumni satsangs. Hope you're all keeping safe and healthy. Last week, we had an alumnus of Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Prashanthi campus, Sri Venugopal Bhamitpati, sharing precious gems from his treasure trove of experiences. And towards the end of that session, many of us felt the need to have one more session with Brother Venu. So we requested him and he obliged as always. I'm sure there are a few new listeners or viewers who may have missed last week's session. For their benefit, I would briefly introduce Brother Venu before he takes over. Brother Venugopal, also famously known as Hyderabad Venu, is an illustrious alumnus of Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Prashanthi Nilayam campus. He was blessed to be born to parents who were devoted to Bhagwan since 1980s. So Samati activities including bhajans, Narayan Seva, medical camp were a natural transition for Brother Venu. He spent early part of his life in Mumbai, wherein he was fortunate to be part of the Bala Vikas program. After completing his electrical and electronics engineering in Hyderabad, Brother Venu joined the Hyderabad Sai Youth in 1997 and was a part of it until 2001. During his Hyderabad Sai Youth days, Swami blessed Brother Venu with several interactions during his frequent visits to Prashanthi Nilayam. And in 2002, upon Swami's command, Brother Venu joined the Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Prashanthi Nilayam campus for his MBA program. During his MBA days at Parthi, Brother Venu was blessed with several opportunities to perform in cultural presentations held in the Divine Presence, including 2 convocation dramas. He was also part of the Prashanthi Mandir Bhajan group. In 2003, he was fortunate to accompany Swami to his summer retreat at Kodaikanal along with Sadhguru Madhusudan Sai back when he was brother Madhu to everybody. After completing his MBA in 2004, Brother Venu worked in several multinational enterprises, including Deloitte, Bank of America, JP Morgan, and currently serving as Vice President in HSBC. On the Seva front, he is actively engaged in several service activities with the youth of Hyderabad. From 2007 to 2011, Brother Venu was the youth coordinator of Sri Sathya Sai Seva organization in Hyderabad. During this time, he had also scripted and directed multiple cultural presentations, especially dramas in the Divine Presence at Prashanthi Nilayam. In 2010, upon Swami's command, Venu brother and his team of youth was instrumental in mobilizing over 1,000 youth from Hyderabad for a unique youth conference held at Prashanthi Nilayam. This conference was a grand success in inspiring many more to the path of selfless service to the society. More recently, he was one among the chosen few who were associated with the subtle mission of Bhagwan back in 2011. In fact, Brother Venu had accompanied Sadhguru Madhusudan Sai in his famous Kailash Manasarovar trip in 2013, along with few other alumni brothers. The details of this trip is beautifully narrated in the book titled Story Divine Part 1 by Sadhguru Sri Madhusudan Sai, and it is a must read for any spiritual aspirant. Today, Brother Venu is with us to share more glimpses of that partnership that he always cherishes with Bhagwan, wherein Swami is like a friend or a guide or a mentor or a divine partner. This is why this session is aptly titled as Partnering with God. Let me now request Brother Venu to take over. Happy listening to you all. Thank you, Sairam.
Sairam to everyone. At the outset, I'd like to offer my humble pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet and pray that I speak what is relevant and useful to everyone. Okay, so quite surprisingly, I'm back, and I was least expecting to be asked to speak again within a week's time, but Brother Gautam and Sister Sai Lakshmi was saying that a lot of people were asking for the session to continue. So, and I thought, what better opportunity to talk about Bhagwan and share the wonderful experiences that he's blessed us with than whenever it comes to you. So, long story short, let me start off with a couple of nice experiences, and then I'll talk a little bit about the activities that we are engaged in and the seva activities and how Bhagwan has been continuing to guide us through the various activities. So this was I think in the year 2003 when I was in my second year MBA, and there was those days it used to be like Swami wouldn't come out and sit every day. So it would only be when there is an occasion, some festival or some program, that is the occasion when Swami will come out and sit in the Kulwant Hall for the evening program and the bhajans. And usually the format would be that some student or the other will get the opportunity to give a rose to Swami, and another student will get an opportunity to offer Aarti, perform the Aarti to Swami. And this was an occasion where, interestingly, after I don't recall which district or which some district from Andhra Pradesh had come and presented a program, and post which the Aarti was done after the program. And I was incidentally in the first row. I mean, the programs used to be in the Kulwant also. I was in the first row where the students sit. And as soon as the program was over, Swami came down for photographs with that group. And he came down those couple of steps. He took the photographs, and then the Aarti was performed, and Swami was incidentally standing there itself. And at the end of the Aarti, during the Aarti, he was looking at all of them, blessing all of them with his benevolent glances. But at the end of the Aarti, when we finished the Aarti and Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu is chanted, and he was looking at me, because I was right next to that group, where the students start. So he was looking at me, and at the end of the Aarti, Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu was chanted as usual, and I was also chanting with everyone. And Swami was looking straight at me, and then as soon as that ended, he walked a couple of paces closer to me and said to me in Telugu, "Dunnaputa, kallallo neelu ravalra," meaning, "You buffalo, your eyes should become moist when you chant that. So that's the feeling with which you should chant Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu." And that kept ringing in my ears, because that's such a powerful message, that when we are praying for the welfare of the world, our hearts should melt looking at what the world is going through, and that should drive us to do something about it. And in that context, the interesting corollary that I wanted to narrate is, many years later, in 2012, when Brother Madhu visited our home, and we had an interaction where, Swami was, of course, he would sit down those days. So Swami was telling me, giving me some instructions about what to do next in terms of the activity and seva and things like that. And at the end of it, as was the norm, we performed Aarti. I performed Aarti, and at the end of the Aarti, as we were chanting, and Brother Madhu was also chanting with me, and at the end of it, after that, after the Aarti finished and we chanted Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu, Swami again repeated the same thing. He said, the same words, Puta Kalalo Neel Ravali, your eyes should be moist. And immediately it rang a bell for me that this was the same thing Swami had told me 9 years ago. And after Swami left, or rather, he was no longer being pursued by Madhu Brother to be there. I shared with him this experience that, many years ago, this is what Swami had said again. And the reason why I'm narrating this experience as a starting point is because, when Swami says go out there, serve people, serve humanity and all, there is a deep reason why he says that, because he wants us to feel connected to everything else in the universe, because that is what the truth is. And therefore, he always used to tell us that, you should do you should go out and serve, not to help somebody else, but to help yourself. And that can only happen when you actually feel the oneness with everything around you. So with that story, I just wanted to quickly, go into a little bit of, some of the activities that over the years Bhagwan has been guiding us. And we the number of seva opportunities that he has bestowed on us, innumerable opportunities at his lotus feet. It just, my while I was recollecting over the afternoon about what to narrate, my heart was full, and I was feeling very emotional, because when I look back today, there are so many opportunities, so much of guidance that he has given with every little aspect of every activity. So without dilly-dallying too much, I will start off with a few, experiences which go with the whole activities presentation that I wanted to show you. So before that, a little bit of background about how we used to work as a Hyderabad youth team, and what kind of guidance we got at Prashanti when Swami used to, interact with us, talk to us, help us understand how seva is to be done, help us become better human beings by participating in seva opportunities. So very often those days we would go very often to Prashanti Nilayam, and at least 5 times a year for different festivals. Guru Purnima would be like, the academic year starts with Guru Purnima in Prashanti. So Guru Purnima, the first festival, then we would go for Dasara again, we would go for the birthday celebrations again, we would go for Sankranti, we would go for Mahashivratri. And every time we would be given the great opportunity to serve in the canteen. But along with the canteen seva, there used to be many other seva opportunities. We used to get opportunities to serve at the Sai Gita shed. We used to get opportunities to serve in the Gokulam. So depending on whatever the need, and Prashanti, the ashram was very welcoming that way, because these were some services which no other Sevadals or no other teams would generally go and you know go and participate in, because most of the sevas were already allocated, and ours was the only team which would just come on the fly for those 3 or 4 days. So one of the occasions that I recall is a very beautiful experience at the Gokulam. And at the Gokulam, we used to have at the Gokulam we used to have this activity where we were bathing the cows and the bulls. There used to be a couple of breeding bulls and the cows, and the clean up the whole Gokulam shed and all that. A bunch of like 30-40 youngsters, we would all go there in color dresses because we'd get dirty there. And we would start off with the whole activity. And this was not the first time we were doing Gokulam Seva, so there were many occasions before that. But this particular incident was interesting because this was the first time that I was part of the team where we went to the Gokulam Seva. And as we were, the cows are generally more docile, so it's easier, to bathe them, to tie them up and bathe them. But there were a couple of breeding bulls, and they were very aggressive, and it was not easy to, hold them. In fact, one of the boys got kicked also because of that. So whilst we were struggling, suddenly there was some activity and flurry of activity, and suddenly somebody came running and said Swami is coming to the Gokulam while we were there, and we were all, top to toe. We were dirty, since we were there from morning, and we were doing all this cleaning activity. And Swami's car enters the Gokulam. Those of you who've been in Prashanti will know there's a Krishna idol. As soon as you enter the Gokulam, you come in straight, and there's a Krishna idol over there. So Swami's car came there and stopped. Swami got down, and he walked towards where we were. And the in charge of the Gokulam told him, Swami, the Hyderabad boys. And Swami said, Naktil, so I know. Then he came close, and he was seeing. He said he was indicating, continue, don't stop, continue. So we were continuing to work while Swami was seeing us, and he was having his hands behind his back like that, and he was keenly observing each of us. And then this particular boy who was trying to struggle with the bull, he called him. He said, "Come here." And then as soon as that boy came to Swami said, "See, in Telugu, okay, in Telugu he said that mukkutadu means there is a rope that is tied to the nose of the bull. So he said, you hold that rope tight, then it will come under control, and you bend its head sidewards, and then it will just not move at all." And as Swami had advised, he held that rope and bent the head of the bull, and immediately it became silent, and we were able to then clean the. Of course, there were the Gokulam workers also who would like clean the bull and all that. And he just that one thing he said, he ensured that the thing is over, the activity is over. He got into his car and went off. And what struck me about this beautiful incident is, even something as insignificant as, I mean, for the gamut of activity that goes under Swami's guidance, this was like nothing, right? I mean, one of the Gokulam workers could have told that boy that, but Swami came, he saw that, and he even guided and instructed on that. Now the beauty of this comes afterwards, because what happened is that particular visit, at the end of that visit, Swami had, as he came along for darshan, before the day when we were about to leave from Prashanti, he came along for darshan, and he stood in front of us, and he was talking to all of us, and then he said, "See, నేను చెప్పాను కదా ఎద్దుని ఎలా, I told you how the bull can be controlled, isn't it? That bull is easy to control. This bull is not easy to control." And then he said, "For this bull, you need to do sadhana." And and he went away. So even in this in this small incident, he taught us such a big lesson about what is the way in which you you can actually dedicate an action to God and seek guidance from Him. So that was a beautiful incident that I recall. I will now quickly talk a little bit about different activities. One of the activities that we were very much into in those early years, is Grama Seva. And our Grama Seva activity would generally be um, typically a 1 day spent in the village, where we would do a gamut of activities, right from, there'll be a medical camp, there'll be a veterinary camp, there would be a pharmacy team which is distributing the medicines for those people who have been identified who need medicines. And then there would be a team which would be doing physical activity. It could be digging a well, it could be laying a road, it could be cleaning up the temple in the village, it could be sprucing up the school. So multiple myriad activities that would happen on that one single day. And in the evening, I think that in the evening there would be a cultural program. I think I mentioned about this in the last in our last session. So one of the things that I recall very fondly is one incident where we ran out of medicines, we ran out of stock. And this was a 5 day camp. And towards the end of the fifth day, we pretty much ran out of most of the medicines. And there was one more village to cover. So 5 days we were covering 5 different villages. And see how Swami's unseen hand comes and guides in situations like this. So we were wondering what to do. I was part of the pharmacy team, and we had all the medicines nicely packed, and we didn't know what to do. If the next day, once we run out of medicines, we'll have to probably close the camp a little early, was what we were thinking. And we had the inventory and everything, so we knew how many medicines are there, how many medicines are yet to be disbursed. And all of that was with us when the camp happened. And on the fifth day of the camp, surprisingly, the camp went on till late in the afternoon. And we were going on disbursing the medicines, but somehow the stock wasn't getting over. And we've all heard of many incidents where Swami would make food become akshayam, or there would be incidents where people are being fed, and the food doesn't get over because of Swami's grace and all. But this was something unique, right? Even the tonics didn't we didn't go out of stock with the tonics also, and there was stock left at the end of the day. And this was such a powerful, beautiful experience for me, who was a little new into the team, that I really felt that, oh, this is the unseen hand of Swami, and he actually works uh, through each of us. And that was very evident in that particular experience. So that that said, and then there have been multiple other Gram Seva camps, and subsequently Swami guided us to start looking at sustainable solutions in villages. So typically what we would do earlier was go to the village, do a 1 day camp, and come away. And there used to be very beautiful small tidbit experiences where Swami would randomly, when we would go there as a group, and in the group interview, Swami would randomly pick up some boy and say, hey, you, that there was that old man standing in the queue, and you didn't take him, and take him ahead of the others. You should have taken him ahead of the others to take the medicines. How can the old man stand in the queue for so long in the hot sun? And this was like a very small incident, because the boy was the boy was the only one who knew what happened, because he saw that old man, and still he thought, oh, this is a queue, he has to wait in the queue, and he just walked away. And Swami picked on that. So there would be these small little beautiful instances where Swami would show his omniscience, and show to us that he's been with us there in the village. So that was another beautiful experience that I recall with respect to Gram Seva. I'll now run through some of the activities that have happened over the last years, and continued activities that went on post Bhagwan Samadhi. So the 2011 was more of a cusp kind of a year, because Swami left his physical frame in Prashanti, and most of us were down, and we were feeling very dejected, and we didn't know. We thought, oh, what is the point in now? Because our attraction, or our whole focus was to please Swami, and now we didn't have any reason to continue with activities with the same heat. And look at the timing, brothers and sisters. At a time when, as a team, in fact, I remember me and some of the other brothers were actually thinking of, should we now focus on our careers and stop getting so much into all this activity thing, because there was not enough support coming from the other elders and all that. And 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 all through Swami was the one who stood behind us rock solid, because he was there like that with his hand, protective hand. And therefore nobody could say anything to us. We would do all the activities, come back and report to Swami, and that was a joy in itself. Now there would be the whole hierarchical headache to think about and all of that, and we were wondering, should we now just cool down and focus on our careers? And the timing is such that, yeah, the last session when I was saying that he called me, and Madhu brother called me and said, hey, I can see Swami, and this was around that timing. And finally, after a lot of, I've explained that in the last call, but after some back and forth, finally I relented. I went over to Bangalore to his place, and there I had my first experience of Swami being there in the subtle form, where only Madhu brother could see him, obviously, but the words were all Swami's. And one of the things I distinctly noticed, and I knew Madhu brother from before, so his Telugu, at least those days, wasn't so fluent. But the moment Swami would come and he would start repeating what Swami says, and that's how he used to say it, in the earlier days, that Swami speaks and I repeat. That's how he used to say it. So as he would repeat, the fluency of Telugu would go up many notches, and it would be like how Swami would usually speak in that typical Rayalaseema slang that Swami would speak in. But what really was some of the clinching moments for me were where Swami was making references to all the group interviews and incidents that happened with us in the interview room as Hyderabad youth over the 90s and early 2000s. And one of the things I distinctly remember is where Swami said in that interview that, did I not tell you that you all should be together and united? Did I not tell you, don't become like a chariot which is driven by four horses which are pulling the chariot in four different directions? Where will the chariot move? And this was exactly what, many years ago he had told us, that you all should be together and do activities together and all of that. And then when Swami mentioned this, I thought, wow, these are exactly those words. And you don't find these words in books, right? So where will you find Swami saying, like a chariot which is being driven by four horses and being pulled in four different directions? And then he said, go back, go back to Hyderabad, call all the youth, do a retreat, refocus on the purpose of why Swami blessed you with so many opportunities. And then in fact, he was saying, is this why I gave so much time to all of you, so that you can all look for your careers? And then he said, go back, bring everybody back, do a retreat. And he in fact actually gave details of what to do in the retreat. He said, get everybody to write down what they are following in Swami's teachings, write down what they are not following in Swami's teachings, write down what they're going to change, and you know let them start practicing that. And he said, go back and restart activities, restart all that you've stopped, start going to villages again. And he said there is a lot of work to do. And of course he told me about all what is happening now, in the sense that the schools and the hospitals and all of that. But one of the key reasons he said he called me that day was because he also envisioned a water project, which of course is yet to probably materialize. But he said he envisions a water project, and he said for that project we will need thousands of youth. And he said, go back and keep keep on working. When the time is right, then there will be a big water project also which will be done, and I'm sure it will be done, because so many things have come true. I'm sure this will also happen. But that was a very significant moment for me, so to say. The other thing that I recall very clearly is, when Swami said in that interaction, he said, go back and start the computer education activity and all of that. In fact, when he came home also, he called the other brothers and said, why did all of you stop the computer education activity. So go back and restart computer education and what we used to call as Sri Sathya Sai reprogramming lives. And so we continued to to do those activities, and basically these were training programs where we would handhold a bunch of students for 2 3 months and so on. I spoke about this in the last session, but I will share a nice incident, a nice story on how Swami, how the unseen hand of Swami works. So there was in 2014, and again I'm talking about well past Samadhi, right? So 2014, we were running a testing course, software testing course in Amirpet, and we were about to start that course. There was one particular boy by name Keshav Reddy, and this boy was in Anantapur, and he wanted to look for a career in software and all of that, and he prayed to Swami in his own way in Anantapur. And that night he had a dream where Swami comes to him in his dream, and Swami says to him, my boys in Hyderabad are running a course, go and join that course, and then you will get a job. And see the beauty of this boy then somehow finds out who's running this course in Hyderabad and gets in touch with us. And then he takes a bus, comes over to Hyderabad, he joins the course. And it was only midway somewhere later during the course that he told us about this experience. And then subsequently he immediately after the course he got a job. Today he works in IBM. And the the interesting thing that we should all know here is, where is Swami? I mean, where there is prayer and where there is sincerity, he is there. So he responded to this boy's prayer. He came in his dream, and I'm proudly saying that. In fact, all of us can be proud about it. That Swami said, "My Hyderabad boys are doing this activity. You go and join there." So this was one more very a very moving incident for me, where you can feel the love of Swami being there. It's not about whether Swami is in a subtle form in Muddenhalli, or he's believed to be in Prashant Nilayam. He's where his devotees pray, and he's always there. So uh, Swami showed us that aspect also through this beautiful experience. I will talk a little bit about some guidance that we received over the years on the village activity and the Gram Seva activity. And you know the entire activity, Grama Seva, beautifully, Swami once gave the acronym of Grama Seva, and he said G should stand for, in Grama Seva, G should stand for glory of God. So when you go to the villages, the first thing you should do is go around the village and sing the glory of God. And that's what we generally do, right? We go and do Nagar Sankirtan. In fact, those of you who are Sai students will recall that Swami used to tell us, even when we go to for the distribution of food in villages, he used to say, go there and first sing bhajans, go there and do Nagar Sankirtan, because he would say it would purify the atmosphere, it'll cleanse the atmosphere of any negatives that are there. And the another amazing thing is, it brings the villagers together, it brings them to come and stand with you. So he used to say G stands for singing the glory of God. R stands for rural leadership, and he used to say encourage rural leadership. So one of the things he would tell us is, when you go to the villages, identify among the youngsters who are potential leaders, who are the boys, who are the men or women to whom the others are listening, and then try to encourage their leadership and show them a way. Say that this is the stuff you can do in your own village. We don't need to come every time to your village to come and clean up your well. You can form a committee, you can bunch together, and you can do this. So he would, very often he would stress on self-reliance of the village and how you can develop that. And for that, one of the key things was encouraging rural leadership. So that was the R. Then Grama, GRA. And A is interesting. This was also it's connected with a lot of activity that we did afterwards. So he would say most of the villagers are agriculturists. They're dependent on agriculture. And Swami was telling us that they don't know what the modern farming techniques are. So you should connect the scientists to the villagers. because the scientists are doing experiments in the lab, the villagers are, the farmers are, cultivating crops in the same old ways, but nobody's bridging that gap. So this triggered a nice, beautiful activity where we got in touch with scientists in ICRISAT. We got in touch with scientists in the agricultural university. It used to be called the NG Rangarao Agricultural University in Hyderabad. Now it's called Professor Jai Shankar Agricultural University. But basically, we reached out to those scientists. We told them that, these are the villages that we are working on. So those days we had adopted a village um, in somewhere around near Mahbub Nagar, and we told the scientists that, why don't you come and guide the villagers. The scientists readily agreed. We took them over several weekends. We took them to the villages. There were multiple challenges also because the villagers were not ready to experiment and all of that. But over time, the scientists advised them on modern farming techniques, how you could use biopesticides, how you could avoid the use of chemicals, how you could increase the output, the yield, how you could use natural techniques to ensure that pests don't infest your crops, and how you can get a better yield and all of that. So all of that activity paid off. It took a year, but there was a 30%, 40% improvement in their crop output, and the quality of the crop as well. And that was a very big success from an activity perspective. So that activity, we we fondly remember. Even now we try to do that, connection between lab to land, we call it. So from the lab to the land, and wherever there are farmers who are ready to experiment, willing to experiment, and try out these new techniques, we generally try and encourage that. So that was a little bit about agriculture and agricultural advice. So we would take scientists with us and get them to advise them on agriculture. Then GRAM, M would stand for medical services. So like I said earlier, medical camps would be going on while the physical activity is going on. So, so in the medical camps, we would take a bunch of doctors with us, typically one general physician and maybe two or three specialists. And most of the villagers who had any kind of issues would come. You know how a medical camp is. I mean, I need not tell you that. So that format was what we would follow. And some of the very interesting experiences with respect to medicines and medical camps, I already narrated one to you. But another incident that comes to my mind, and I fondly recall this, is there was one particular village where, while we were doing the medical camp, um, there were Naxals who also used to come to that village very often. And so so that village was used to Naxalites coming and going and all of that. But as soon as the Naxalites came to know that there was some other group which has come here, they got a little nervous or something, and they came with their guns and everything. And the moment they came there, and somebody shot a bullet in the air, people fled, and we didn't know what to do. I mean, imagine you're there in the village, you're trying to do some grama seva activity, chanting Swami's name, and here you are in the middle of people with guns and firing and all of that. So one of the people from that group of Naxalites came over, and he asked, who is your leader? So we used to have one of the senior brothers who pretty much used to be kind of lead all of us. And that person came in front, and this is something that I learned from the leaders of the Hyderabad U team. That person came in front, that particular brother came in front, and he told, we don't have a leader, sir. Our leader is Bhagwan Sri Satsai Baba. The moment he said that, something came over that Naxalite chief or whatever, and he called all his group, and he said, hey, these are all Sathya Sai Baba's people. They've come here to do good work. Let's go. And they boarded their vehicles and vanished. And when we went to Parthi in a subsequent visit, one of the brothers mentioned to Swami, all of us, even when guns were firing around us with Naxalites and all, we didn't stop the activity. And Swami was so pleased. He said, that is how your dedication should be. Allah Undalra. That is very good. He was so happy. He was so pleased that we were able to continue with the activity. So, of course, one of the prerequisites for spiritual, I should say spiritual progress, but if you want to get anywhere in spirituality, is where you have to give up fear. And if you have to give up fear, then you have to be totally committed to the cause of Swami, and be clear that okay, I'm here only because I need to work for Swami. Once you have that clarity, I don't think fear will enter. So that's something that I learned that day. Then so coming back to the medical camp, so GRA, MA, and then again the other A that Swami gave an acronym was about the veterinary camps that we do. So he called it animal husbandry. So GRA, MA was where the last A was animal husbandry. Then S in the Seva, he said S stands for Shrama Seva, or the physical activity that you do in the villages. And that is where most of us would, as youngsters, we would really love to go and physically engage, do something which is physically engaging, tiring, and all of that. And one of the interactions Swami was telling us in one of the interviews that as Vayaslo, in this age, this is the golden age between 16 and 35. This is the golden age. And he said, in this age, you should learn to bend the body, mend the senses, and end the mind. So he said very beautifully, he said, bend the body, which means use your body to work and be in seva all the time, mend the senses. And Swami used to often tell us that, when you are engaged fully in activity, then your senses don't have free time to run here and there. So your senses automatically get mended. So he said, bend the body, mend the senses. And that is the way how you can then get your mind under control. So end the mind. So this was a beautiful interaction that I recall with respect to this. And then so S was Shrama Seva, E was educational activity. So while this was going on, there would be a couple of brothers who would gather all the children in the village, and throughout the day there would be balvikas running. They would teach them bhajans, they would teach them some nice shlokas, they would run some competitions, they would tell them the story of Swami and Swami's life, and very beautifully that activity would go on. And we stood for values, value based programs, the cultural programs that we used to do in the evening, which used to speak about values. So Swami had given a very clear guideline that no matter which village you go to, tell them that they have to give up three things. One is smoking, dhoomapanam. One is madhyapanam, which is drinking, and most villages you would notice would be addicted to drinking the local country liquor. So you would say you should talk about or encourage them to give up smoking, give up drinking, and mamsa bhakshana, which is meat eating, give up non-vegetarian. So every village that we went to, we would give this message, where because Swami had told us very clearly that this is something that you need to drive into every village. And the last A, Seva, Grama Seva, the last A, Swami said, after you do all of this, what you get is A stands for Ananda. So at the end of all that, you would get Ananda. That was the beautiful acronym that he had created for Grama Seva. So that was about how we would get engaged with Grama Seva. Subsequently, he gave us further direction on, he started saying, it's good that you go to the villages and do all of this, but start thinking about addressing long term issues. you know Start thinking about sustainable solutions. See how he was training the team from being a bunch of youngsters with a lot of energy, going and doing some small activity, to then refining the activity and channelizing the energies in the right directions, to now starting to talk about, okay, you need to think about sustainable solutions and how you can build that. So that was how Swami
Uh,
shaped the
we-
team.
so 1 second, Venu brother. There is some issue with the Zoom today that a lot of people were saying they were not able to log in. So I have mentioned in the chat box a link to the live streaming. The current session is being live streamed on YouTube. So this is for the benefit of all the viewers. You could share this link with your friends, or if you are aware that somebody is not able to log in, you could share this link. They could watch it live. That's all. Please carry on, brother. Yeah.
Okay. So that was how through different if on different occasions Swami guided the team with respect to how activities are to be done. Come 2011-12, particularly 2012, Swami again came to Hyderabad in the settled form. And one of the things that he did was he started a small trust with Kondal Rao Garu, Sri Kondal Rao Garu, who was the architect of Swami's massive water projects. With him as the chairman of the trust, he started a trust called Sri Satya Sai Sujala Shravanti Trust, and subsequently we've been doing activities under that trust. And I will now run through some of the activities, and while I do that, I'll also talk about the guidance that we received from Swami through through Madhu brother and know about how these activities should be shaped and all that. So let me quickly share with you my screen and present to you some of the activities that we've been running. Just give me a second while I bring that up. So this is a little dated in terms of content, but I think it should give a fair idea of the activities that we run. So let me know if everyone can see the screen. Gautam, can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, so basically, as an introduction, this was set up in 2012, like I said, and of course, service was the sole intention. I'll talk a little bit about the different kinds of services that are rendered under this trust. So there are education activities. So these are all continuation of what we used to do earlier, but with a little more formality and a little more structure around it. So education, rural development, which is the Gram Seva and all of that activity that I was talking about. Education, I've already spoken about reprogramming lives, and then there's a Satya Sai higher education project also that we ran for some time, and then healthcare activities where we've got the medical camps, and more recently over the last few years we've been doing cardiac screening programs, and the mother and child health program, and blood donation activity and so on. And of course the nutrition activity, all of you are familiar with the massive activity that Annapurna Trust does. So this is in our own small way we do uh, Narayan Sevas and breakfast service. So I'll quickly talk to you about a little bit about the educational activities. So Satya Sai reprogramming lives, multiple training programs over the last 15 odd years where we've run so many programs with so many batches coming out and all. The beauty of this activity is today many of these students who graduated from our programs are coming back and saying we will run these programs. And this is what Swami had told us long back. He had told us that those students, out of gratitude, they will come back and they will run the programs. And today that is happening. It's a reality where some of the first batch, second batch, third batch students are coming back and they are running this activity today. In fact, as we speak, an activity for software testing is being designed. I will show the poster of that activity at the end of this presentation. And 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 very beautifully, each of them with the same kind of commitment that we used to see among our team, they are coming forward and saying this has benefited our lives, we should benefit 10 others as our gratitude to Swami. So that is what is a beautiful thing about this activity. Similarly, since it's a higher education program, so this is every year we would pick up 3 or 4 boys from underprivileged backgrounds, and we would handhold them through intermediate and graduation. And that is a program that we ran for a few years. Now this program is being run by the alumni of this program itself, which is those boys who came out of this higher education program and are now well settled in different jobs, are the ones who are actually running this under they've set up a separate small trust and they're running it. So that is a beautiful outcome of this activity. This is of course the vision of how we want to scale this up. I'll move on to the healthcare and healthcare related activity. One of the activities that we started a few years ago, and again this has a small story behind it. So like I said earlier, we used to go to villages, run medical camps and all of that. On one of the visits, especially when the Delhi hospital was being inaugurated, those of you who've been to the Delhi hospital or had visited the Delhi hospital at inauguration would recall that Swami had called our team also to help and serve and take care of the guests and guest management there. So whilst we were there, uh, one of the days Swami was, as he was passing by, he called me, and there were a couple of other brothers also, and Swami called me and said, why don't you also start? So there was Shubhajit who was from Kolkata, the Arogya Vahini Trust in Kolkata, and how Swami guides him in their activities in Kolkata. And Swami told me, see how those guys are running. They are doing cardiac screening through teleconferencing. Why don't you also start something like that? And then so we said, yes, Swami, we will surely try. And we came back to Hyderabad and we were brainstorming on how this can be done. And so Nilofer Hospital is a hospital which is the second largest pediatric hospital in South India. So we went there and we spoke to the doctors there, because I mean, where would you find the patients, right? So that's a pediatric hospital. That's where we thought we can find cases where they have a need for cardiac screening. So as we went there and we initiated conversations on how we can probably set up a teleconferencing uh, with doctors in the Raipur hospital and all of that. But the screening. So then what we started doing is we started to talk to. Am I breaking up?
I think so. I
Okay.
think your
We
voice we
started to
broke for
talk.
almost around 10 seconds.
Okay, I am assuming it's okay now, right?
Yes, yes,
Is it okay
please.
now?
Yes, brother.
Yeah. So so in Nilofer Hospital, after we held that discussion, and we realized that without a cardiologist, it's very difficult to do cardiac screening remotely. So at that time, what we did was we kind of went around the city, met multiple cardiologists from different private hospitals, especially pediatric cardiologists. And pediatric cardiology itself is a very rare skill. So across the city, we learned that there are only 8 pediatric cardiologists, and we spoke to all of them, and few of them agreed. So around 4 of them, in fact, agreed to come and start helping us with this activity. So they used to say, okay, I can take out 1 hour in a week. And that is how this activity started, where they would come over to Nilofer Hospital and they would do the cardiac screening. And then, we would help with the coordination and follow up and all of that. So they were pediatric cardiologists from Star Hospital, Apollo Hospital, Continental Hospital, who all have come and helped us with this. And as we matured over the last 3 years that this activity has been going on, we've completed more than 5,500 pediatric cardiac screenings, and more than around 134 surgeries have happened through this program, where we would tie up with the hospital, tie up with some foundation which can fund the surgery and so on, depending on what the need is and all of that. So that is how this activity is running today. Sorry, I just skipped the slide. One sec. So that is how this activity is running today. And even now as we speak, there are every week 4 or 5 screenings happening. Now comes the beautiful part, where I will go back to the interaction that we had when the Delhi hospital inauguration was happening, where Swami said, "Start. Why don't you start doing teleconferencing?" COVID hit last year, and as soon as COVID hit, the doctors couldn't come to Nilofer Hospital anymore, because of all the risk involved, and we didn't know what to do. So one of our brothers then took the initiative, and through his organization, uh, he used to work for a company called Synchrony Financials, and through that organization, he enabled a teleconferencing setup with the Nilofer Hospital, which lets you have high definition cameras. It lets you also uh, be able to do real time patient interaction, and the in-house doctor in Nilofer can actually do the probe movement under the guidance of the person on the other side in the teleconferencing thing. So now these same doctors are using the teleconferencing facility, guiding the doctors in Nilofer. They've been trained by these very doctors over the last couple of years. And this activity is now, if I mean, whenever, because of the COVID spike and all that, and because doctors could not come and go, but this activity has not stopped because of the teleconferencing ability. And I go back to what Swami mentioned. He said, why don't you set up teleconferencing for cardiac screening? And today it's a reality. Now we are in conversation with the Sanjeevani hospitals to see if because these doctors do it 4 days a week. For the other 3 days in the week, can we get a tie up with Sanjeevani? So that is how we've been doing this activity in Nilofer Hospital, and so many babies are, their lives are being saved. And I can well imagine if Swami is doing that activity at a Sanjeevani hospital level, where you have hundreds of thousands of babies getting saved every year. In our own way, we are doing this, and that's why I call it partnership with God, because you have to walk with God, as he's guiding the activity, you just do it. And that's how we've been able to do our little bit. Divine Mother and Child Health Program. So this was again an activity that all of you are familiar with. It's done at a very big scale in Karnataka. But some things that Swami has guided on the Divine Mother and Child, and in fact, this activity even before Swami's Samadhi, when he was in the physical form in the old days, he had spoken about this activity, and he had given a lot of guidance with respect to this activity. And one of the things he said, and which stuck in my head, was when you do this activity, and the provide consultation for the pregnant mother and all of that, also do not forget to tell them about the nice stories of Ramayana, Mahabharata, God, Bhagavatam, and things which will make the mother spend more time thinking of the divine than looking at, wasting her time in watching TV serials or something like that. Because what the mother will take in during that time of pregnancy, the child will imbibe. And Swami of course gave the example of how Prahlada was in the womb, and how he became a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. But this is something that we've constantly tried to inculcate with our ladies team, women's team, talking to the pregnant mothers while they're waiting outside for their checkup. They talk to them about these things, and teach them some nice stories of about God, and tell them things like, spend more time in prayer, spend more time chanting whatever the name of your favorite deity is, and so on. Of course, as an outcome of the activity, we've seen over the months, we saw an improvement in the HB levels, because for most of these village folk, the HB levels used to be below acceptable, and we've seen a lot of improvement. It went beyond 8 and 9, and earlier it used to be their HB levels used to be around 6 or 7, which was very low. Medical camps. We've done multiple medical camps in the villages that we've adopted, which include different specialties, and we also have taken the identified cases for as follow up, brought them to the city, got surgeries done, got minor cataract surgeries, dental surgeries, etc. done, and so on. So this is more like a snapshot of the healthcare activity. With respect to the healthcare activity, another new initiative that we've started, and before I move on to the rural development thing, another new initiative that we've started with respect to the healthcare activity, and I'll talk a little bit about that activity as well, because it's relevant here. So one of the ideas, this is more recent, and one of the ideas that we came up with was, why not have a pharma bank? And I'll explain what this means. So this was an idea that one of our senior brothers had long ago in early 2000s, and had we had initiated that under a different trust, which Swami had instituted at that time. And the idea was, at that time, the idea was that for the Satyasai organization, which runs medical camps in multiple districts and multiple samitis and so on, Hyderabad being a pharma hub, why not source medicines and supply free of cost to all these centers, so that it helps them manage their costs and all of that. We took the same idea, and we thought, now Swami has actually started these big hospitals, right, Sanjeevani hospitals, and why not come up with the pharma bank, restart a pharma bank under this trust, and try to institutionalize it and make it more effective. And I'm switching presentations here just to show you the concept of that pharma bank. Just give me a second. So the idea was taken by one of our brothers who's now serving as the secretary of the trust, and he showed it to Swami and said, Swami, this is what we want to do. And Swami said, my blessings are there, go ahead, it's a very good idea. So what we then did is, we came back and started working on it, and I'll quickly show you what the idea is. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see, brother.
Yeah. So we called it Sri Sathya Sai Aushadhalayam. Okay. And basically the idea was creating a hub and spoke model as a pharma bank. So this is, of course, this is a little bit about the trust and all that. So this is the idea. What we want to do is we want to have a pharma bank here in Hyderabad, and we've already started work on this. Already the first lot of medicines has been dispatched to the Delhi and Mumbai hospitals. What we want to do is that we will be creating a pharma hub here. We are in contact with multiple pharma companies, and we are trying to source medicines that are required by these large hospitals, which are the hospitals that Swami has started in Raipur, Mumbai, and Delhi, and also the Arogya Vahini Trust in Kolkata. In all these places, we want to be able to reach a state where they become totally free of having to buy medicines. See, as people who are not maybe millionaires, we can't probably donate millions to Swami's trusts, but we can save millions by innovative ideas. And this is one idea I feel can help in saving a lot of money, and thereby enabling so many more babies to be saved in the process. So what we want to do is we want to procure medicines from the pharma companies. Our initial attempt is to see how much we can get free of cost as donations, and then we will start looking at a model where we can probably get medicines at a cost to cost basis, and then be able to supply to these hospitals. And we would also probably like to open it up to the other larger hospitals that Swami has in Parthi and Bangalore if they agree. So that is the idea. Of course, we need to grow this. This is in its nascent initial stage right now, but this is the idea. And just to show you the scale at which things happen in Raipur, Delhi, and Mumbai, and what the need is like. These are the figures of the monthly spend on pharma, which is, I'm talking about only medicines and disposables in Raipur, Delhi, and Mumbai. So you can see every month Raipur hospital spends around 30 lakhs, 26 lakhs in Delhi, and 14 lakhs in Mumbai. So this is approximately 90 lakhs a month, which goes only and only on medicines. If we can at least meet 50 or 60% of this spend, it will save the trusts a good 45, 50 lakhs every month. So that is the kind of need that is there. And this is the idea that we are working with. We're in conversation with C. Srinivas sir. We are conversation with the doctors on the ground, and also the people who are administrators at the hospitals. So this was the activity. Arogya Vahini also. So for the trust that Shubhajit runs in Kolkata, they do approximately, you can see the figures there, right? So they do so many outreach camps and so many patients that they reach out to, and they have a regular list of medicines that go out every month. And that is another initiative that can be supported potentially from this activity. And they have a spend of approximately 70,000 or more per month. And we've been trying to partner with them and we've been helping them with medicines, but with this pharma bank we probably want to take it to the next level. And of course we ourselves conduct a lot of camps here, medical camps, as we said, so this pharma bank can serve that also, and that is the idea. um, yeah, like I said, this is the collaborative approach that we are taking. Some of the pharma companies that are already partnering with us, you can see their names here, and we want to join hands with the other trusts and see how best we can serve them. So this is the idea. um, I will go back to the activity presentation, and this is because I just brought this up because it's relevant to the healthcare initiative that we were talking about. And going back to some of the activity snaps that I was showing you. Just give me a second while I bring that up again. Okay, I hope I'm on screen. I hope the presentation is on screen.
Yes, yes, able to see.
Yeah. So going back to this, so healthcare, the vision was, of course, that we set up in future we want to set up a free pediatric cardiac center. This is something that Swami has told us, that in future there will be a free pediatric cardiac center which will come up here, and we want to work towards that, and all of this activity probably helps us move in that direction. I'll talk a little bit about the rural development activity post 2011 that we've been engaged in under the auspice of this trust. So there's a village called Timmaipalli that we've adopted. And one of the activities that we took up was to improve the sanitation and the sanitation of the village and all of that. So there is a small story that I would like to share here. Many years ago in the year 2001, when Swami had called us for a group interview, and at that time, as part of the larger team, we had adopted a village called Borivali. And Swami, in that particular interview, I had I had the opportunity to tell Swami about what we were doing in that village. And while we spoke about all of that, Swami said in that interview, you should also do something about health and hygiene for the villages, because they are not good at staying hygienic. Do something about health and hygiene. Do something which will help with sanitation. Maybe construct toilets for them. This was what Swami said at that time, okay, before even Swachh Bharat and anything came into picture. And that time Swami had said this. And in fact, we did make an attempt. We constructed public toilets in that village at that particular point in time in 2001. And fast forward many years later, we adopted this village called Timmaipalli, and we noticed that this village also had no sanitation system or nothing of that sort. And it was a little dirty. People would just throw things here and there, and there was no way to let the drain out and all of that. So what we did was, we partnered with the village. And I mean, that was something that Swami would always tell us to do. He would say, when you go and work in the villages, ensure that they are participating in the activity, ensure that they are equally responsible, that they are equally partnering with you. Otherwise they will think you are like any other government agency which is coming and doing something and going away. And that is something that we didn't want. So what we did was, we partnered with the villagers, and we said, okay, you give your physical labor to this. You put in your labor. We are not going to engage any labor. You will be the labor for this village. And there will be some component that they will all pool and do together. The remaining component we will all pool and come together and do. So as a big camp, we all went as a group of 30-40 boys. The villagers came together. They were around 100. And all of us together, we laid, you can see this picture on the left. It's about laying pipelines as a centralized drainage system in that village. In that entire mandal, there is no village which has a centralized drainage system. This is the only one which has one. And the other thing that we also worked on was to make it open defecation free. We used the government scheme. We partnered with the government folks, because there was a Swachh Bharat scheme that people could utilize. And we ensured that every house has a toilet. Every house has a mechanism for the drainage, and it is left outside the village. We also did a tree plantation activity. And I sorry, I couldn't get the pictures on to this, but we actually just recently somebody sent us pictures from an activity that we did 3 years ago, and then and now those trees have all grown big, and the whole place looks very green now. The other activity we also did was constructed school toilets there. And the school didn't have a toilets facility, so we constructed school toilets and ensured that the students there don't have to go out into the open. um, Drinking water, they had issues with drinking water. We sunk a borewell, put up a water tank, because they didn't have a source where they had an old borewell, but they didn't have any storage facility, so we created that. And that is one example of the rural activity that we are doing. This is another village in Nalgonda where we had set up a deflorination plant. Of course, we had done that in multiple other villages before that, but this I'm showing only this because this was done under this trust. And we set up a deflorination plant in that tanda, because there was no other source for water and the groundwater was polluted. We laid an approach road. You can see all the youngsters here, engaged in the road laying activity, and it benefited around 200 families. So that's the activity. This is a more recent activity, a housing project for people who lost homes in a cyclone in Srikakulam. I'd like to talk a little bit about this activity as well. So what happened is, in way back in 2006, 2006 or 2007, if I'm not wrong, around that time there was a housing project we had done as a team in a remote tanda in the Godavari district, which was on top of a hill, very remote area. And one of the senior brothers who was telling Swami about that activity, and Swami was so moved, and he said, please give me. See, look at this is why I keep saying partnership with God. He said, give me an opportunity to do this, and it was so beautiful to see Swami say something like that. But of course, he was saying that more to make us feel that he is part of the activity as much as we are. And that said, fast forward again, a similar thing now. So when we first came to know about this cyclone hit thing and all, one of the things that Swami had told us in when he initial days in 2012, as soon as he started visiting our home and he was guiding on various activities, one of the things he said was, think of some low cost housing for the coastal areas, because they keep getting hit by cyclones and they keep losing their homes. And this rang a bell with what happened in the past, right? So as soon as he said that, we started to think about what can be a low cost housing alternative and so on. And subsequently it took a few years, but finally when the need was identified, and in Srikakulam district, when some people approached us saying that people have lost homes. You can see some of these pictures here of people whose homes have been shattered because of the cyclone. What we did is we identified families which are not covered by the government schemes, and for those families we constructed small 250 SFT homes, similar to the projects that Swami had done earlier in Odisha and so on. So we constructed 250 SFT homes, and totally around 8 homes have been constructed like that. And needless to say, Swami was very happy when we told him about this activity. So this is another beautiful project for us, where we were able to provide homes. Of course, I can't show you the videos of all that, and because we have video footage of those families which got these homes. We are so grateful to Swami for having provided a home to them, a shelter to them. And recently, when there was another cyclone which hit, these people had Paka homes, so they didn't have anything to fear, which is great. So that's a little bit about that activity. I'll talk a little bit about the COVID relief activity, which is more recent, which we've been engaged in over the last few months. Um, so some of the stories are really very, you know, you can say very moving. We've identified some while doing the distribution of dry ration kits, and so we had a whole list of ration kits where we would give a 25 kg rice bag a month, uh, a month's need of supplies. I mean, in the sense that supplies which would suffice for a whole month, where you would give them cooking oil, you would give them pulses, salt, etc., etc. And we call this one kit, and around 550 ration kits have been distributed so far in Hyderabad, in Sirsilla, in Siddipet, in Bibi Nagar, in many areas where there are needy families. Many of these families have lost their breadwinner, in the sense that the only member who was earning the livelihood for the family has passed away due to COVID. Many of them have become orphaned. I mean, there were families where only there are just the kids who are surviving, and they're staying with their uncle now. And it's very moving. The whole COVID wave was very bad, especially for people like these who didn't have access to any kind of medical facility and were in remote villages. So one of the things that we are doing is, along with giving the ration kits, we are keeping track of all such families which have further needs, and we will be looking at how we can probably help them find a livelihood and so on. More than 10,000 meals served in the last 3 months. So we tied up with our larger youth team. We also tied up with the Kondapaka College, where they were serving meals, and we supported them for the whole meal serving activity, and essentially for government hospitals, attendants, and needy families. And in the city in Hyderabad, it was more like anybody who's impacted with COVID could call a helpline, and the food would get delivered to their doorstep, with a tie up with certain other organizations. And apart from that, we got together and formed a bank, an oxygen concentrator bank, where we could serve the people with need for oxygen concentrators, and we would supply oxygen concentrators to them. And once their need is served, it can come back. We've given away a few, and a few are still in rotation and are with needy patients. We also supported Nilofer Hospital again, because they were running out of supplies for SpO2 probes and humidifiers because of the whole COVID wave, and because government funding getting diverted to COVID. They were running out of these probes and all of that, and they needed that because of the mad rush at the hospital. And when they approached us, we were able to help them with that. We also sent medicines to Bengal again, for to the Arogya Vahini Trust folks, to be able to serve in the rural areas. So I'll stop activity presentation with this, and I'll probably share a few nice relevant experiences. I don't want to continue with this because of course nutrition is largely covered in a big way with largely covered in a big way with the Annapurna Trust. So I wouldn't want to spend too much time on that. But we are working on the nutrition aspect as well, and in our own small way. So one thing that Swami has done with this team particularly is that he's asked us to continue to be serving in multiple areas, and whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's villages, whether it's nutrition, medical, etc. And one of the reasons he said is, many youngsters, they get attracted to different kinds of activities. Therefore, you should always continue to keep it open that way, so that the people who can get connected to whatever activity they feel connected to, then can come forward and participate. The intent is not to gain numbers. The intent here that Swami was talking about is to give more opportunity to people, or rather create an opportunity for people to be able to emancipate their lives by being part of selfless activity. And I think that is what Swami always drives with all of us. I'll just talk about. I have a whole list of, I've written a whole list of things that I can talk about, but I'll probably just mention a couple of nice experiences that we had, and then we can you know talk about, open it up for questions maybe. So Girish, I will answer your question. Just give me this 2 minutes to first talk about a couple of things that I wanted to share as experiences. One of the interactions, and I think this is when I was a student, and one of the interactions that Swami blessed me with was when I was a student. And as soon as I joined, I had joined from the Hyderabad youth into the Satya Sai Institute. And that's this whole seva passion and everything was in my head. And I was thinking, oh, this is the seva is the ultimate thing and all of that. And quite naturally, I wasn't very serious about the studies and about doing very well in the MBA course that I had joined. I already had a degree under my belt. I had already done my engineering, and I was not so not studying very hard for MBA. And during that time, one interaction that I recall, and is a message for everyone, is that one of the days we used to have something called CIE. Those of you who are old students will remember CIE is continuous internal exams. It's like tests before your semester exams. So the first CIE exam in my first year of MBA, I scored a little low, just maybe 60% of the marks or something in a subject called quantitative methods. And I was just sitting. I just came and sat for darshan as usual, and Swami came and sat outside, and he picked me a Hyderabad, come here. So I went close to him, and Swami was asking. Swami asked, "How did you write your exam?" I said, "Swami, I wrote very well." And it was, this is because once you get used to talking to Swami, you think you can start saying anything, And I was in that phase. So I said, "Swami, I wrote very well." And Swami said, "How many marks will you get? How many marks did you get?" Actually, the papers were already given. I mean, so I knew the marks. "How many marks did you get?" And all these teachers were sitting on the veranda to my left. Swami is in front of me. And I knew that if I blurt out my marks, it will sound embarrassing. So I said, Swami, I don't remember. And Swami said, hey, I know how much you got. And then Swami said, he didn't say the marks, huh, but see what he said. Swami said, see, if you study well, will your parents be happy? If you get good marks, will your parents be happy? I said, yes, Swami, of course. Then Swami said, see, if you study well and get good marks, if your parents are happy, I am your divine parent, how much more happier will I be? And then Swami said, see, if you have to please Swami, no, you should learn to do everything for Swami. Not only seva, only grama seva, only working in village. That is not the only thing. Everything that you do, learn to do it for Swami. And then he said, study well and get good marks. And of course, needless to say, after that I studied well, I got good marks, and Swami was happy with me. But the point here is that it is not about just about activity and what you do and all of that. In fact, one of the old I'd say interviews in the year 1999, I recall, Swami was telling us about activity, about the seva activity. As I mean, we had come from a camp, and Swami had called us in for an interview. And Swami said, see, if you have mudda means one, a morsel, or a ball of rice, So he said, if you have a ball of rice in your hand, and if you keep rotating it around your head like this, is there any use? You have to put it in your mouth. Only then it will give you sustenance. Correct? So then Swami said, the seva you are all doing is like that. Only when you dedicate your seva and your work to Swami will it go in. Otherwise, whatever you're doing is a waste of time. This is what he said. Interestingly, the same message. I mean, that those days I thought it is only for seva, but it is in our head. We categorize something as seva, something as office work, something as work which is done for family or somebody else. If we can train our minds to get tuned to to get tuned to the fact that everything needs to be done as an offering to Swami, even if it is your own personal work. In fact, even if you're brushing your teeth, you're taking your bath. Swami had said this in the Kailash Mansarovar trip, in the interactions, one of the sessions. He was saying, this is when we went to the Kailash Mansarovar trip. He was saying that everything, why can't, when you brush your teeth, why can't you think that I am brushing my teeth so that, when I speak, it will not smell bad, and if Swami comes and stands in front of me, I can speak nicely. Why can't you take bath thinking that I'm purifying my body because I'm getting ready for Swami? Think of how you were when you were with Swami, right? You would want to put up your best. And he said that Swami is not gone anywhere. He's there. It's just that you need to be ready all the time. So that is the important lesson that that Swami had taught. Another, and before I open for questions, so another beautiful interaction that I wanted to talk about was, there was one particular instance where and this was later, when Madhu brother had visited home and Swami was in the subtle form. And uh, one of the things that I asked Swami was, Swami, when one of the sayings that I don't understand is, don't walk in front of me, I may not follow you. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead you. Walk beside me. What is the meaning of this, Swami? I asked. Because in my mind, it was Swami is the one who is to lead us, right? So you just follow what Swami will show. And then Swami said something very beautiful. He said, see, don't walk in front of me, I may not follow you. The reason why I say that is, supposing you have a small child. You had, at that time, my son was very small. So he said, supposing your son is running in front of you, he can fall, he can injure himself, right? So similarly, if you try to jump the gun and do things faster than what I am telling you to do, then you may injure yourself. That is why I say, don't walk in front of me, I may not follow you. So don't try to go 10 steps ahead and do things. So that is the understanding of that. Don't walk behind me, I may not lead you. Supposing Swami is telling you to do something now, it is now that you have to do it. If you say, okay, Swami has told me, I'll keep this in my mind, I'll do it much later, then the charm is lost. So that is why he says, don't walk behind me, I may not lead you, because Swami may have moved on, right? And you may get lost. Then he said, it is not just walk beside me. He said, it is still walk beside me, still walk beside me, which means you have to be still to be able to walk beside him. Means keep pace with what Swami says and do things as per the pace at which Swami is setting things. And that was a very beautiful, important message for me, because I, having been in activities for many years, I could clearly see that there were instances where we went ahead 10 steps ahead, fell down and injured ourselves. There were instances where Swami had told us things to do and we didn't do it at that time, and much later it couldn't be done anymore. But the activities where we did when Swami told us, they are the ones which got pulled off and which could run successfully. And the important thing is, he says still walk beside me. And when he says still, it means be still, be steady and keep your focus on him. If you look here and there, which means if you divert your focus from Swami to somebody else and something else and something else, and you keep running places, you're not going to get anywhere. So that's the beautiful lesson that I learned that day. So I will probably open up for maybe two, three or four questions, because I have a lot of other experiences to share, but I think the whole activity thing itself took up a lot of time.
Yeah, so
So
you could
anyone who wants to,
probably share some, snippets if it is shareable from Swami's visit to your home in 2019, also, and probably even earlier than that also.
so Swami has visited our home multiple times. Okay, so I would say 2019 when he came, and we had the second floor in the house inaugurated, and by Swami it was just the eve of Vinayak Chavati. The next day was Vinayak Chavati, and he had come fairly late in the night actually, but still he came and he spent some time. He sat in the veranda. One very beautiful interaction that happened that time was, in the veranda we have a nice fresco, a nice painting of the Rasa Krida, Krishna and the Gopikas, and Rasa Krida painting. And Swami came and he stood in front of it and he was looking at it, and he asked me, what is this? And I said, Swami, it is Rasa Krida, Rasa Leela. And then Swami said, what is the message in this? What do you understand from this? I said, Swami, it shows that God is with each one of us. That's what it is, right? So with each Gopika, there's a Krishna in that painting. So I said, Swami, God is with each one of us. And then Swami said, that is not the only thing. He said, God is with each one of us. But see, those poor Gopikas, each one of them is thinking that God is only with her. And then Swami said, you should always keep in mind that God is actually with and in everyone, not only with and in someone. And then the other thing he said was, the difference is that Gopikas at that time, they thought that Krishna belongs to us. Only Radha thought that she belongs to Krishna. And therefore, Radha always experienced Krishna even after he went away from Vrindavan. Whereas the other Gopikas kept weeping and kept thinking that Krishna has gone away. Then, of course, he said, of course, at a later stage, they realized that. But the point is, the beautiful lesson here is that God is with each one of us, but more importantly, we belong to God. Don't We should never think that God can be limited by our understanding of what God is. And that I think is the foolishness that many people fall into. But we should all realize that we belong to God. God doesn't have any boundaries. In fact, I recall, so if you trigger me like this, Gautam, memories will keep flowing. So one more interaction that I recall is in one of our group interviews, and I'm talking about uh, 2000 or 2001. in one of our group interviews, what happened was that Swami had said to us on the previous day that I will call you boys tomorrow. The next day he didn't call us, he ignored us, and the day after that he called us for an interview. Now one of the boys in the team had the audacity to say to Swami that, Swami, why did you lie to us? Can you imagine asking Swami that? He said, Swami, why did you lie to us? You said that you will call us the next day, but you didn't call us the next day. First, Swami was trying to be nice. Okay, so Swami said, but I called you now. And that boy, that is okay, Swami, but how can you speak untruth? You know, see this boy, and I was quite furious because I was wondering the next thing Swami will probably do is all of you, oh, interview is over, go. But then Swami said something. Swami became a little stern, and he said, rules don't bind me. See how Swami says this. Huh? He says, rules don't bind me. And then he said, supposing the Prime Minister of the country visits Hyderabad, what happens? All traffic is stopped. Do you think they will follow the signal? The signal, whether it is showing red or green or orange or whatever, Prime Minister's convoy just goes through. Why? Because those rules don't bind the Prime Minister. Then he said, if it is like this for Prime Minister, for the Lord of the Universe, what rule will bind Ra? He asked. So see, so lovingly he said, and then he said, I follow rules only to set an example to you. And he said, I am like the PT master. I'm like the drill master. I will show you how the exercise is done. But it is your job to do the exercise, not mine. So that I got reminded of that because of this thing about this incident about how rules don't bind God. So that was the interaction. Yeah. Any questions that anybody has?
So how did the COVID, in your own spiritual journey, how did COVID help you with that journey inward? Any interesting lessons from this phase?
Did COVID help you in your inner journey? I don't know. That's a tough one to answer. I mean, I don't I wouldn't I wouldn't say it is COVID which helped me in my inner journey. I would say it's more the increasing, and I think all of us probably are going through that right now. It's the increasing urge to connect within to the source, and I think whether COVID or not, I think it would probably still continue, and it should continue till we are able to actually form that inner connection with Bhagwan. And and the only way I think is the way that Swami has shown us, right? Which is Man mein Ram, Hath mein Kam. Keep doing Namasmarana, keep focusing on Swami, offer every action to him, and do every action like how you would do something as an offering to God. And that's the only way I think. If we deviate from that, then the journey will be longer. That's the only that's the only thing. I have an interesting interaction to talk about with in that context also, but I will keep it if somebody has any other question. Otherwise, I will mention that. Anybody has any question? Anybody putting any questions on chat, Gautam?
So I have another question. Since you have seen Brother Madhu closely during your college days, was there anything special about him during those days, or have you observed anything something special between Swami's interactions with you all?
See, as students, okay, and I wouldn't say this specific to Madhu brother, but in general, as students, a lot of students. I mean, there would be students who would not be so focused also, but most of the students and a lot of students during those years that they are there would show a lot of focus on Swami and want to do or do things which will please Swami or somehow catch Swami's attention and so on. One thing that I did notice about him, because when I joined, I joined in MBA and I saw him for a year. He was in the second year MBA, and of course subsequently we had interactions as alumni. But he was there longer, right? So he was there through his BSc, MSc, and MBA. And one thing I did see in the time that I was there was that he had like many other students also did, he had tremendous focus on Swami. And uh, and there was this urge to please Swami somehow, do some program, do something, do some sketching. He was very talented, so he could sketch beautiful sketches. He would design the sets of the dramas for the for the annual sports meet event. He would design the huge sets and all of that, and night and day he would work hard. And it was not like he was only in one group. Like, let's say if he's in the band, only band is my only thing, and I won't bother about that. No, he was all over the place. So he would be in the sets, he would be in the script writing for the dramas, he would be directing dramas, he would be part of the band, he would be part of any musical offering or anything that's happening. He would he would look to be part of it. And that was something that I saw and learned, that there has to be a lot of course, I didn't find that. I mean, I didn't have the kind of talent that he had to be part of everything, but the the dedication to Swami and the focus on Swami was always there. I think in many ways he's lucky, he's chosen. Is It's also got to do a lot with what you come as baggage from, what you bring as baggage from many previous lives. And I think he probably has reached a stage where none of the others have been able to reach. So that I think is special. In his interaction with Bhagwan, um, Swami Swami remembered him very well. So he knew him by name. Swami would talk to him very often outside in darshan and all. And yes, I mean, he would get physical attention from Swami as well. But more importantly, it was his dedication to Swami that stood out to me. That's what I would say. Any other questions from anybody?
I don't see any other questions here for now.
Okay. So I will. Okay, how are we on time? I think we are already past time.
Yeah, we are. But yeah, it was a great session. Would you want to say anything before we close, or?
Um. So I would say, you know, the one thing that I mean, the reason why I keep saying partnership with God and partnering with God is because the only way where you can experience, see, Swami is always with us and in us and around us. That is always there. Okay. But the point is, the only way that you or we can experience that is the only way we can experience that is when we start believing that he is with me. And that's why Swami, if you remember, in the last interaction I said, Swami said, think of me as your best friend, as somebody who's always next to you, helping you, guiding you. You can have any conversation with Swami, you can speak anything to Swami, but bring Swami into your life, make him part of your life, think he's here, think he's around you, and keep having that connect with him. And that, I think, is absolutely key. And I think that is what will also keep your mind um from running here and there. One beautiful experience that I recall in this connect in this context is when there was one particular interaction where we went for seva to Puttaparthi, Prashant Nilayam, and then from this is post Samadhi, and then from there a bunch of us came to Mudanhalli. And we were little agitated with the whole you know how it is, right, with the whole split and the organization thing and all. So when we came here and Swami graciously called us in for an interview, and the first thing he said as soon as we entered, he looked at me and he said, why did you have to come? And he said, Swami, we have all these questions and all. And then as we sat down, he said, what questions do you have? And then our brothers asked all those questions. Things are like this, things are not going well with the organization and other things. What do we do and all of that? And then Swami gave answers to all of those. And he looked at me and he said, isn't this exactly what I told you? The reason why I'm saying this is because just a few days before that, because all this thing was going on in my mind also, and when I sat for my prayer and my in my own prayer, I felt the same things that Swami was saying now. And he said, "Isn't this the same things that I told you already?" See, this is the thing. No, when we know that Swami is speaking inside us, we don't want to believe it, and that kind of reiterated the fact that Swami is actually already communicating. It's just that we are not we're not tuned to be able to listen to what Swami wants to tell us, and therefore it becomes more and more and more important for us to tune ourselves well enough within. So that needs to happen. That mental silence needs to come. In fact, in one of the interactions that we had before, this was before I just finished my MBA, we had a nice class interview. Where we this is the picture of the class interview. If you can just pause here, no. So
Okay.
during this interaction, so this is timely. So during this particular interaction, one of the things I asked Swami, as Swami was having that interaction with all of us as a class, one of the things I asked Swami was, Swami, how do I achieve inner silence? Because Swami keeps saying that it's only in the depths of silence that you can hear the voice of God. And when he says depths of silence, it's not only external silence, it's about inner silence, your mind being silent. So I said, Swami, how can I achieve inner silence? Swami just looked at me and he gave a single one word answer. He said, intensity. Intensity. Develop intensity of yearning. You will achieve. You will achieve it. You will achieve inner silence. Another beautiful, in the same interaction, another beautiful thing that I always recall and I keep sharing with a lot of people is, there was this other brother next to me, and Swami was, that particular paper you see in Swami's hands is actually a lyrics sheet, and the lyrics were of a song that we tuned, which is based on Swami's own padyams. So it is basically written by Swami only in Swami's own composition, and the lyrics had the Swami's padyams, and it goes like Ananda Balude, Ananda Baludai, Tanavari Gurtimpa Tarali Vachen. So Swami picked this up and he looked at that and he said, what is this? And that is the interaction that you're seeing in this picture. He's where he's saying, what is this? Is this why have you written Ananda Baludu, Ananda Baludu? And I said, Swami, but these are your compositions, Swami, your lyrics. Then Swami said, no, 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 this is wrong. He said, you should say Ananda Balude, Enanda Balude Ochadu. That that Nandabala has come as this Nanda. He said, A Ramachandrude, E Ramachandrude Ochadu. Like that you should write. Like that Ramachandra has come as this Ramachandra, which means Swami. And after that interaction was over, at the bottom it was written second PG class. So basically, so we do a second PG program. So at the bottom we wrote second PG class. So he got the three letters in capitals P G C, and he looked at me and he said, "What is this PGC?" I am like a very ordinary thinker. So so I said, Swami, postgraduate class. And Swami didn't get the answer that he wanted. So he looked at the guy next to me, the other brother next to me, and he said, "What is PGC?" Now this man was already, a little more in the spiritual thinking and that mode, and he said, "Swami, purity, goodness, and character." And I was wondering, what is that how you can interpret this? Then anyway, that was in my mind. But so, as soon as he said purity, goodness, and character, Swami said, "But purity is goodness, and goodness is character. So why do you need three terms?" He said. So obviously we were all silent. And then Swami said, "What is purity?" And the same boy, he said, "Swami, Daiva Preeti, Papa Bhiti," means love for God and fear of sin. This is where the cash comes. So Swami said then, who does not love God? As soon as he said love for God, who does not love God? Everybody loves God. All of you love God. You go out on the road, ask anybody there, everybody loves God in their own way. I mean, if you believe that God exists, you love God, right? If you don't believe that God exists, then there's nothing to love or not love. So there are only two categories. So he said everybody loves God. And here's the punchline. Huh? Then he said, the problem is that you love other things also. Now just think a little bit about the import of this. He said, the problem is that you love other things also. The moment he said that, it struck me like a ton of bricks that, oh my God, that's so right. I love God, no doubt, but I also want my job. I also want my car. I also want my bangla. I also want a good reputation. I also want people to appreciate me, praise me, listen to me, all of that. When Swami said that, then he said, you should love everything as God, or you should love God as your everything. And then he said, then only you can get Kaivalyam. Appude Kaivalyam chikkutundi. Then only you can get Kaivalyam. As long as you love other things also, it's not going to work out. So that was the beautiful interaction, and just, I mean, there's a lot of deep depth in that message. And this, it's the same thing that Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, is the same thing that Swami is saying to us, the same message over and over again. But we don't know when we will learn.
Thank you, brother. I just, waiting to present these photos, especially from your Swami's visit to your home. I'm sure our viewers
Okay.
are also delighted to,
So
see
while
these.
you share this, I am reminded of another more recent interaction when Swami was in this particular visit where you see this picture, right? So on this visit, so one of the interactions, the kids in the house, they sang, you know, I taught them some of Swami's compositions. So Gautam, the songs that we used to sing in front of Swami's own compositions, that Daya Cheta Dhanyulu Kavalera and Teliyagatarama, and those are Telugu songs that Swami's own compositions. So the kids, they sang these songs, and after they sang those songs, one of the songs that which is Daya Cheta Dhanyulu Kavalera, uh, Swami very beautifully, Swami said, "Do you know the meaning?" So he was asking the children, "Do you know the meaning of this song?" And they were all silent. And then Swami said, "What do you understand by Daya Cheta Dhanyulu Kavale?" Or it basically means, by the Lord's compassion, you will become you will be blessed. You'll become dhanya. Dhanyulu means you'll be emancipated by the Lord's compassion. That is the literal meaning. Here's where Swami gave a new meaning to it. So he said, it is right that God's compassion alone can emancipate you, but how will God's compassion flow to you? And then Swami, see, for children to understand, he was saying it so easily. He said, see, if you what can you do to get God's compassion? First, you should show compassion over others. You should show compassion for others. When you have daya for others, then God's daya will come onto you. That is the reason why he says daya cheta dhanyulu kavalera, which is only out of daya, or the compassion. And then the other thing he said is daya is not actually compassion. I mean, because English doesn't have better words to give a true translation. He said daya does not mean compassion. He said, see, when a thorn pricks the foot, the eye sheds a tear. Why? Because the eye does not think it is different from the foot. It is all one. So he said, like that, when somebody else is in pain, you will feel pain. That is the true meaning of daya. It is not about compassion, meaning go help somebody else. So these were the couple of beautiful things that he told when he was here on the last visit. So just wanted to share that as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Venu brother. Since we already overshot the time, probably we could, draw this session to a close uh, with our deepest gratitude to Bhagwan for giving us this beautiful evening filled with a lot of bliss and recollecting all those wonderful experiences and those sweet moments of divinity. Also, our special thanks to Brother Venu for obliging to come for a second time and sharing his beautiful moments with Lord. Satyasai Annapurna Trust for helping us with the Zoom call arrangements. Also, the alumni and the devotees across the globe who are currently watching us live. Thank you all. May God bless you. Keep yourself safe, happy, healthy, and let's conclude with a prayer for universal peace, harmony, and happiness. And we'll draw the session to a close. समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शांति ही। जय बोलो भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की। Thank you, everybody. Please stay tuned. We will come back again next week with more such beautiful experiences from several other instruments of Bhagwan. We will upload this video onto YouTube, and we will share the link widely so that people who missed this, especially those who couldn't watch it live on Zoom, could go back and view this entire session live on YouTube. Thank you, everybody. Jai Sai Ram. Sai bless us all.